Hey guys, Alan here, Solid Rock Sunday School class. Hey, Happy New Year 2021. Hey, it's got to be better than 2020. Hey, um, remember, Sunday service, 10 o'clock, online only this week. Hopefully we'll get some better weather or we'll get some better statistics where we'll be able to meet either in person or at least outside, or it'd be nice to meet back inside, wouldn't it? But hope you're staying safe. We've been talking about character traits here of Christ here, and we've around the Thanksgiving time, we talked about gratitude quite a bit during that time, and then started talking about joy and peace and being generous around the Christmas time here. Today we're going to be talking about responsibility. And I'm going to pull this first of all from Romans the 14th chapter, verse number 12. He says, "So then, every one of us give an account of himself to God." Also want us to look real quick over into the book of Ephesians. Ephesians, the 5th chapter, verse 16. He says, "Redeeming the time because the days are evil." And then I want us to jump over real quick over to Philippians, the 4th chapter, verse number 5. He says, "Let your moderation be known unto all men. The Lord is at hand." The English Standard Version, I'm going to use it a couple of times this morning, but English Standard Version of Philippians, the 4th chapter, verse 5, he says, "Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand." You know, I have an illustration here. Illustration I want to kind of run with for a minute. Not 100%, not 100% mine, but I think it makes a good point. But I want us to think about the fact of if somebody dropped in our bank account every single day $86,400, I could handle that. I mean that'd be okay. That's only $31,536,000 a year. That's quite a bit. But let's say that they drop it in there, but there's a stipulation. The stipulation is you have to use it or you lose it. Boy, I bet we would do our very, very best to take and make sure that we use that $86,400 every single day. I have no idea what you would do with that kind of money every single day. But when we start thinking about this, we have 86,400 seconds every single day, and we have 24 hours in every single day. We have 7 days in every single week. That's 168 hours a week. So we have to use them, because if we don't use them and we don't use them properly, we lose them. We never get another opportunity to use those. They're gone. Back to Romans real quick, the 14th chapter, verse 12. "So then every one of us shall give an account of himself before God." That's something we really need to think about. We are going to have to give an account of ourselves to God. In Ephesians, the 5th chapter, verse number 16, he says, "Redeeming the time because the days are evil." If I use the English Standard Version here on this one, it says, "Making the best use of the time because the days are evil." And he goes on in verse 17, still in the English Standard Version, "Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is." So time management, it's always been this buzzword. It's always been a buzzword that I've had forced upon me some way or another during my career here. And it's everything from having post-it notes to to-do lists and checklists, calendars. Right now I kind of live on my calendars, mainly my Google calendars. Kind of did away with the old appointment book type of a thing that I used to run with. I used to use all kinds of electronic organizers, and I still do right through my iPhone for sure. But man, I used to use Palm Pilots and Daytimers and Franklin planners to do all kinds of things that would kind of, take and organize my time. Wow, some of those things kind of date me just a little bit. But Stephen Covey, he put in his book, Seven Habits of Highly Efficient People, time management is really taking, and it's a misnomer. The challenge is not to manage time, but to manage ourself. Interesting kind of a concept here. It's interesting that when we look in the Bible, that we don't find a lot of emphasis on saving time or managing time. We're called to be good stewards of all that God has taken and given us, and He's definitely included time in that. But more than that, the words of the Apostle Paul, if we look into Ephesians, the 5th chapter, and we're going to look again into Colossians, the 4th chapter, we're called to redeem the time. So we're called to make best use of it. Redeeming the time, taking advantage of every single opportunity that God takes and sends our way. In Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, verse 1, he says, "And you hath He quickened," or made alive, "who were dead in trespasses and sin, wherein in time past ye walked according to the course of the world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience." So, at times we just need to reschedule things that we might have so that we don't disrupt what we really need to do. If we're making bad choices with our time, it's important that we take and look at it. In Ephesians, the 5th chapter, verse 15, he says, "See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise." I don't want to be considered a fool. I don't know anybody that really wants to be called a fool, and it's one of those things that, boy, it'll set you off if somebody calls you a fool. Pretty strong words. If I look at that in the English Standard Version, he says, "Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise." And I think all of us want to be wise. I'm going to use kind of an illustration, and I'm going to use it kind of out of, not out of my own personal life, but kind of out of my work life just a little bit here. And, if I had kidney disease and if I was on dialysis, and I'm not, by the way, and 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I needed to go to the dialysis center, and I had to go there at 8 o'clock in the morning. I certainly wouldn't take and accept an invitation to do something else during those times because my life depends on it. So Paul warns us here to be careful. The truth is, some of us just need to reschedule, and I'm one of those that needs to take and just reschedule some of our time because we're making bad choices on how we use our time many times. So you might just need to take and reschedule the time that's been given to you. I know that I need to take and reschedule some of the time that's been given to me. Because we need, you see, it belongs to us. The time belongs to us. Every one of us has the same amount of time. We have a lifetime. But we're supposed to use it for the Lord Jesus Christ, no matter how long or how short that is. Again, English Standard Version in Ephesians, the 5th chapter, verse 16, "Making the best use of the time because the days are evil." Have you ever heard anybody say, "Well, I'll do this in my time. Let me make this, kind of blunt as I can guess make it here as we talk about it, You don't have time. You're living off God's time. Let us, take and handle it properly. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back to Ephesians, the second chapter. In verses 1 and 2 here, he says, "And you hath he quickened, who were dead in trespasses and sin." In verse 2, he says, "Wherein in time past we walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of his disobedience. We used to live where we squandered our time and where we didn't consider God into the equation." I guess we could ask ourselves from those two verses here as we look at it, how much time does a dead person have? Well, I think we all know that one, none. So the question we might need to ask ourselves is, how are we handling this precious gift God has taken and he's given to us? We still hang up on the saving and managing time. Or what we really need to do is we need to take and move more towards redeeming the time, making the best use of the time. So we kind of look at, do we focus on opportunities that God has given us, for doors that God's given us to open? We need to look at that every single day. An American poet here that I pulled from, Carl Sandburg, he writes in one of his poems, "Time is the coin of your life. It is not the only coin you have, and only you can determine how it will be spent." So be careful lest you let your people spend it for you. Unless you let other people spend it for you. So he's telling us it's just like a coin. We need to take charge of that. Jonathan Edwards, great preacher, said, "Resolved never to lose one moment of time, but to improve it in the most profitable way I possibly can. Resolved to live with all my might while I do live." That has a lot to say right there. So, one of these days, this time on earth that we have, it's going to end. And it's really important that we've taken and managed the time, or redeemed the time, made best use of the time that we possibly can. We're not really going to be asking about saving time. We're not really going to be asking about that managing time. We're mainly going to be concerned if we're using it in the proper manner, making the most out of the opportunities that God has taken and given each one of us. Ephesians 5th chapter. Back to this. He says, "See that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise." Again, English Standard. "Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but wise." I think one of the things is that we really need to think about here, that using our time properly, it's hard, but it's much harder if we don't do it. So today, hey, from my family to yours, Happy New Year 2021. It's got to be better than 2020, and thank heavens 2020 is behind us, and hopefully that we can take and step forward here and have some improvements as we go forward into 2021. I know it's not like flipping a light switch on, but you guys really need to be careful out there. It's really bad with this pandemic at this particular point. no matter what your views are, I'm seeing it every day. I'm seeing it devastate lives every day. And I just want to take and urge all of you to be safe. So happy New Year's 2021. Alan signing out.